talking about alternatives to the pharmaceutical industry tonight with naturopath Stephanie Tippie. She is also a Reconnection certified practitioner, author, and motivational speaker, as well as co-founder of the Anti-Aging Clinic, and is all about natural alternatives. We're going to be talking all about these other options that you don't hear about too often on mainstream media or mainstream anything for that matter. Tippie and her husband are the creators of the 8 Steps to Aging Younger program, empowering their clients to make better choices for health, hormone balancing, beauty, and longevity. Their extensive research has led to numerous natural alternatives to mainstream medical protocols, and these alternatives work by ultimately bringing the body back into balance. Their research path has led them to create and formulate many state-of-the-art health and beauty products, and it is their belief that without prevention, we are all destined to age earlier. Such a timely topic, considering how many have become aware of our environment and how toxic and over-contaminated so many things have become for humanity as a whole, all the way around the world. Our oceans are contaminated, our water systems are failing. We have a lot to really consider when it comes to this, and it's a great topic. It's very relative, and thank you so much for joining me here, everyone. Without further ado, welcome, Stephanie. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, Hillary, this is an honor. Thank you so much for having me. We're gonna rock and roll it tonight. I feel it.
Well, it couldn't be the 5 planets in retrograde or the Mercury transit that only happens 13 or 14 times a century that just happened yesterday. So we're in some really ripe energy. This is wonderful. So, Stephanie, share with us a little bit about your personal story. How did you get into this field?
Well, I started believe it or not, in mainstream medicine as a respiratory therapist back in 1977, so I am dating myself. That's when I graduated and I started working, and I stayed in the field about 10 years, and then from there I gradually moved on into selling medical equipment and traveled all throughout South America doing that, selling high-tech medical equipment. But in my heart of heart, I knew that something was wrong, and I was always involved in the alternatives. I did not believe in pills, taking medications, and certain instances happened within my life that led me to leave mainstream medicine. One, losing my brother. He was only 27, and then losing my mother, and she was only 66. That pushed me further and further and further away. My husband and I were always dedicated to taking care of our own bodies, and a passion for our own health morphed into a business plan, and hence we opened up Aging Younger Anti-Aging Clinic back in 2001. And our story just gets stronger and stronger each year because we continually are on the path of study and research and development. So when you introduced me and you said naturopath, I'm not a naturopathic physician. We are naturopaths, and that term was coined back in the early 1930s by Dr. Benjamin Lust, who was a physician, and he originated from Germany, came to the U.S., and he was, because of the FDA trying to squelch him, he was in jail more than he was out practicing because he believed in the naturals, or the natural to the mainstream medical, and he termed or coined the term naturopath. So for us, naturopath refers to one who follows and studies the laws of nature.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. Naturopath, follower of the laws of nature. Well, we couldn't start at a better place. So talk to us a little bit about that and tell us what that means.
Well, if when you introduced and read the bio that I had given you, we mentioned in our bio that we try to stay away from drugs. We're the alternatives to the medical pharmaceutical sickness industry. So if you go back to where medicine really started, it was Hippocrates back in the 400s. And what was his famous saying? Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. That's what nature is all about. It's all about eating right. It's all about lifestyle. So if we can get this down right, and which we believe we have done by creating the 8 steps to aging younger, incorporating all of the lifestyle changes, then yes, we can age younger. And I am so glad that you chose the picture that I sent you of my father, my husband, and I to portray what aging younger really is. Because if people go to your site, and those who are listening to us, I encourage you, click on Hillary's Yin Radio site and take a look at my father. He's 91. Take a look at me. I'm 66. And my husband is 70. And that picture is from February of this year. So we walk our talk.
Yeah, you do, and that's a great picture, by the way. I think it really sums up the energy of what you do. Now, when you talk about the FDA and the way that it kind of, do you feel that the FDA has become, how do you view it? Has it become kind of a barrier to people really reconnecting to their natural health? What's your view on the FDA, and how do you approach that topic when people bring that up?
Well, that's a great question, because it's a very controversial question to many people. Not to me, not to my husband. So for us, the FDA is at the helm, is the second of the there's an impenetrable box. Let me start that way, okay? And at the helm of the impenetrable box is Big Pharma. And Big Pharma controls the FDA. So the second side, or the second corner from Big Pharma, you go to the FDA, and then from the FDA you go to the insurance companies, and then last but not least, to close this impenetrable box, are the unsuspecting physicians, or some of them, I should say, are suspecting, because there are many doctors who are out there who are on the take. There was a story not too long ago. There was an oncologist in Michigan who got his hand slapped, finally, for putting patients on chemotherapy when they didn't even have cancer, because he was getting a kickback of $1,000 per treatment. I don't know if you read that.
Well, I do keep up on this. I host a radio show called Rocking Politics, and one of the things that we have talked about on my other show is the whole system and the establishment and some of the corruption and the stuff that happens within that. If you're listening and you'd like to find out more about those shows, you can go to my YouTube channel and subscribe, YouTube/Hillary Raimo, and all of the shows and all the different platforms that I have done radio on since 2005 are available there. But you talk about insurance companies, which brings up the Obamacare program. How do you view that in the United States? How has that helped, or just, taken away some of the help as far as it goes getting back to nature?
Hillary, you have the right person on the show, because I'm living a nightmare right now. I'm living a nightmare because of Medicare and managed care, and the faults of Medicare managed care, which I put a lot of blame on Obamacare, bringing us to this point in our healthcare system. I just published a eBook, I should say eBooklet. It's not long, but I published the story of my father and his journey. And it's on Amazon, it's on Kindle, it's on a lot of the ebook venues. And it's called Healthcare in the 21st Century, A True Story of Greed and Love of Family. You see, Hillary, the medical pharmaceutical sickness industry nearly took my father out 3 times. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And I'm talking about mistakes that were done on the part of physicians, hospitals, nurses, and skilled nursing facilities. So it's coming down to the fact that because there is less quality, it's affecting the poor John Q. public who walk into the hospital thinking they're going to have quality care, and it's not happening. Obamacare took over $700 million from Medicare to support Obamacare. So now Medicare is cutting the services and the payments that are due to the elderly. This show, I'm hoping, is going to push my advocacy for the elderly and for the infirmed. And if people read my story, 21st Century Healthcare, they will get a good feel of what is going on. My father's back in the hospital again as we speak. He had to go in for some follow-up treatment because of an infection that was developed due to whatever happened in his previous bouts in and out of the hospital. And yesterday, it took approximately 9 hours to get him admitted into the hospital. My father had me cracking up. Here's a 91-year-old. This is how strong his mind is. And we're sitting in the emergency room, and he said, Steffi, I can't even check into a hospital. I just cracked up. I couldn't believe it because of the way the system is. And then when we finally went through the triage, after 3 hours in the waiting room of the ER, went inside the ER and waited for them to bring him up to a room. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, this was me 35 years ago. Because remember, I started in mainstream medical, and it was like I was way up above, I was drifting above, and I was looking down, because the vibrational frequency in that emergency room was dense, and the vibrational frequency of our universe is higher. And I could see things that other people couldn't see. It was very surreal to me last night. An eye-opener for me last night.
Well, I think the eye-opener is really when you take a look at this topic and you start to independently research it on your own instead of just taking the words of the system and the marketing that hits us all, you start to realize that we really do have a for-profit system. And that really may be the problem, is that we have such a for-profit system set into place. It's not about the patient. It's about the bottom line. Don't you agree?
It's not, you're right on, spot on, Hillary. It's not managed care, it's managing profits. That's all it's about. It's about the money. And do you know what DRGs are? DRGs, diagnostic related groups. They came out in the 80s, I think. And that's when Medicare, I think it was Medicare, and insurance companies lumped people into groups of diseases, if you will. And they're looking at people today as opposed to being individual. They're grouping them into a diagnosis. But the body reacts differently. And you can't do that. Every individual is different. Every cell is different. Everybody has different DNA. How can you do that? And it's getting worse and worse and worse. All to save the almighty dollar.
One of the issues that a lot of people are concerned about is how Obamacare came in and digitized all of our healthcare records and really made a mass movement from, paper trails and privacy to digitize healthcare records, which could not only be hacked into and stolen, but, it enables kind of a cross network of information where doctors from different, specialities, different offices can read your reports from other doctors' offices. Have we gone in a really dangerous direction with digitizing our records?
Yes and no. I would say, coming from where they are, it's time-consuming to hand chart, okay, having done it. But it's quicker. You can access information quicker if your physician is really on top of the patient. But the physicians are not on top of the patient. That's one of the reasons, one of the biggest reasons why my father ended up 3 times back and forth in the hospital, because the physicians were not on top of his case. And you take a 91-year-old, you don't treat him as if he were a 50 or 40-year-old or even a 60-year-old. And that's what they did. So to access the information, if you had the infrastructure within your medical practice to individualize your patient outcome, I would say yes, it's right. It's a good thing. But the fact is, if you go into the majority of the practices today, the waiting rooms, you'll sit in a waiting room for an hour before you get back to see the doctor. And then it'll only be a 5-10 minute, or even if it's that long, 5-10 minutes with the doctor, and you're out the door. So I agree with it, and I don't agree with it. That's the best way I can answer it, because people are just. It's all about the money, the money, the money. And so it's not the best way of doing things if you cannot use it to the benefit of your patient.
Yeah, agreed. So, and it's nice to have your opinion, being that you were inside the medical profession, so you've seen it from both a positive perspective as well as a negative perspective. So thank you for giving us that. Now, when you talk about 8 steps to aging younger, can you give us a little insight, without giving too much away, what exactly a person does to age younger?
Well, I'll start with the infamous word lifestyle change. It's all about lifestyle. So what we do is we empower people who choose health, because we believe health is a choice. Not everybody wants to go down that road. So if you choose health and you come to us for coaching, then we will empower you with the 8 steps to aging younger. And I'm just going to give you each step. I'm not going to go into detail, but you'll get a feel just by hearing what they are. So the first step is to improve the immune system, and everybody knows what immunity is. Second step is to improve the lymphatic system. The third step is to improve the cardiovascular system. The fourth step is to balance the endocrine system. The fifth step is to detoxify with EDTA chelation therapy. And for those who don't know the acronym, EDTA is ethylene diamine tetracetic acid. The sixth step is to hydrate your body properly, and that's with alkaline water. Seventh is to get off of synthetic drugs and also synthetic products on your body. And the eighth, last but not least, is to tighten and tone the texture of your skin. But the last step can only be achieved if you reach the other 7 steps, because it's the ultimate. When you have a healthy interior, it's going to reflect on the exterior. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are some people who maybe, in their 30s, and they can look sometimes 15, 20 years older, and then vice versa. There's some people in their older years that can look a lot younger, and I think it's a clear reflection of inner health. Would you agree?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Did you know that your skin, which is the largest organ of the body, it will reflect your health and interior, especially your digestive system? Did you know that?
No, give us some examples. So if somebody is having some issues, and how would that manifest on the skin?
Acne, psoriasis, eczema, People don't realize this. It's digestive issues. The digestive system and the skin are, they're one and the same. Guess what? The skin, it needs to breathe. The digestive system needs to breathe. And they interact beautifully together. So I'm in the process of putting together another eBook on how to heal your gut naturally, and we do have a protocol for that.
So healing the digestive system, would you say that's the first step for people to start to really get, away from the mainstream type medicine and big pharma? They start with what, a kind of detox or a clean out? How do you approach that?
Well, for the gut, what we recommend is our protocol is taking our Rejuvenous OSH Silver combined with aloe vera juice 3 times a day, probiotics, because let me explain what the silver is going to kill the bad bacteria. And the reason why the aloe vera is because bacteria and virus love sugar. So when you drink the aloe and the silver together, the bacteria and or the virus is going to immediately be attracted to the sugar, and bam, we're going to kill it with the silver as it starts to migrate over to the aloe. But at the same time, we're taking away some of the good flora that's in the intestinal tract. That's why we reintroduced that with the use of our Rejuvenous probiotics. But then there's a reason that all this happened, that there is a malfunctioning of the digestive system, and one of the reasons is a decrease in immunity. The immune system is compromised. So we highly recommend antioxidant CoQ10 and our selenium, our Rejuvenous selenium. So we have a whole system that we have set up where we recommend. We do not prescribe, we do not treat, we do not diagnose, nor do we cure. We make recommendations. And remember, I said earlier in the show that health is a choice. And if people choose to be healthy, then they will choose to follow recommendations. If they don't, that's fine, good and dandy. But it's a beautiful protocol. It works. It's an awesome protocol. My cousin, for an example, and I wish she could be on the show to testify. She has Crohn's disease, and she's had it for years. And I said, Estelle, you don't have to suffer like this. Please, trust me. And she's mainstream. She is a dean of allied health services in a medical school, in a medical college. And she's skeptical because she is mainstream medical. I said, Estelle, please, trust me. So she went on the protocol, and she went into complete remission. Crohn's disease.
Wow. It's probably possible for a lot of people to come forward with many success stories with getting back to nature, so to speak, and following the laws of nature and aligning their bodies with that. Now, let's take somebody who perhaps is on a lot of medication and really ingrained into the system. What is the first step they really take to getting some kind of advice on these alternative options? Because when they go to their regular doctor, perhaps their regular doctor isn't going to be so open in discussing that, or might, try to persuade you not to do it. Where do you recommend people get that first, aha moment that they have to go from where they are to where they want to be?
Well, the first step would, they have to make the conscious decision that they want to get healthy. Then they have to do their research. I could throw out my phone number. I could throw out my website. That's fine. I'm not here to self-promote, but I'm going to tell people on your show that they need to start researching on their own what they feel comfortable with. to make the healthy choices, because if they don't have that conscious decision made that they want to get off of these drugs, they're never going to get off of them. One of our very dearest clients, she's been with us since we opened the doors. She came to us. She was on statins. She was on medicine for diabetes. She was having muscle cramps because statins will do that. Statins pull the CoQ10 from the liver, and it plays havoc on the body. And she made that conscious decision that she was going to get off these drugs. And she came to us and sat down, consultation, and to this day, 12, 13 years later, she's still coming to our clinic. She's off the statins. She's off the diabetic medicines, and she is totally natural.
What a success. Chemtrails. Let's talk about that, Stephanie. A lot of people feel that chemtrails, and as more and more become aware of the realities of what they are, and we have, government on record saying that they are spraying stuff for geoengineering and for weather modification to help. But yet there are some opinions that these kinds of chemtrails can actually negatively affect human health. What's your opinion on them, and how do you, let's start there. What's your opinion?
Well, chemtrails they are dangerous. It's a chemical. So drugs are chemicals. Anything that you cannot patent is a chemical. Anything that's why they don't want the alternatives in there, because you cannot patent Mother Nature. So yes, chemtrails should not be allowed. Yes, our government has gone too far off the grid, if you will, and we need massive change. We need massive change before our planet implodes, because the way I see it, we are headed towards mass destruction. And chemtrails are just a minute part of what is happening.
I think the human being is becoming over contaminated with a very toxic environment, and as we go on the path that you're talking about and we detox and get back to nature, so to speak, we find that we had to have an awakening. It's almost likened to a spiritual awakening. Would you agree?
Oh, so much so, and that's why I tried to explain earlier in the show. Yet last night in the emergency room, I was like, I believe I was up in the fifth dimension, and I was looking down at the density that is surrounding us, and it's that density that is holding the Earth, the universe, from really lifting itself to the fullness of the higher conscious level. We all go through different layers of consciousness as we evolve, and if we are evolving the way we should be evolving as spiritual beings living the human experience, we should be taking along with us those who are behind us so they can evolve. But that's not always the case. And I think you can understand that, Hillary, because you and I, we think alike. You are one who likes to educate people, who likes to bring to the forefront controversial topics so people will open up the pineal gland and start looking through their third eye so that they can start to raise their consciousness. And until that happens, we are going to be stuck in a society that is on its way for self-destruction.
You mentioned the pineal gland. Talk to us about the calcification of the pineal gland and how fluoride has played a big role in that. Do the alternatives that you deal with help to decalcify this?
I would think so, because I believe, or what I've coined, the Trinity of Health. And to me, as I define the Trinity of Health, it's the soul, the mind, and the body. Because we come into this field, into this earth, as the spiritual being living the human experience with our soul. The soul is pure energy, okay? Energy is light intensified. So imagine if we believe what we need to believe, how we can light up our minds to light up the world, and then bring the body back into its homeostasis or state of balance.
With all the focus now on GMOs and labeling or not labeling, consuming versus not consuming, the fact that they're banned in 64 different countries, and we refuse to hear, in the United States, refuse to even label and let people know what they're consuming, the GMO field has become quite ripe with controversy, rightfully so. How do GMOs, in your opinion, affect the human body, and do they help or do they harm the overall system?
Well, they harm. Anything that's genetically modified is not natural, in my opinion. Okay, I'm giving you my humble opinion, and I believe there are a lot of people out there who agree with that. My husband and I, we term these foods as Frankenstein foods. And not only are they genetically modified, but then they're also non-organic. And when they're non-organic, that means they're being sprayed with all the pesticides, fungicides, mildicides, you name it, all the sides, they've got them. So the body does not do well. The body does well with nature. We are all one. We are organic. The earth is organic. So why put into the body something that is inorganic, i.e. GMOs? Why? Very simple answer. It's big business. Like we have big pharma, now we have big business. Monsanto pretty much is, and Archer-McDill, I think, is the other company. They're two big companies that are running with this and getting away with it, with having GMO crops. And that brings me to something I have to throw out there. All the people who are vegans who believe that, they can get their protein from plant like soy, well, be careful, because soy, number one, is a phytoestrogen, and it will play havoc on your endocrine system. And number two, I would say 99% of the crops are genetically modified, the soy.
Well, the wheat crops are genetically modified as well. Does that help or harm celiac disease and people who have this kind of sensitivity? How do you, when someone comes to you with these symptoms and they say, well, I have to, go gluten-free, I can't have any wheat, do you feel that it's because it's GMO?
It's because actually, that's a really good question, and we did address that in one of our shows. And David, my husband, he's an expert on this one. But it has to do with, I believe, what is more lactose intolerance than anything else that's playing havoc again on the intestines. So if the intestines are not, if your intestinal or digestive system is not up to par, of course you're going to have issues with certain foods. And there are people who are allergic to gluten. So, then stay away from it. But you need to get your intestines back into a healthy state, and that is to detoxify them. And then that goes back to the silver aloe protocol with the antioxidants. And when you have a happy intestine, you have a happy brain, and you have happy skin, because there's the brain-gut connection, too. I don't know if you know anything about that.
Well, tell us a little bit about it, the brain-gut connection. Let's go there.
Well, the brain, when the when you're stressed and you're not feeling well, and what the brain is sending signals to the body, and these signals are ending up in the intestine, and it's causing a lot of interference and disturbance within the intestine. So the brain-gut connection has a lot to do with de-stressing the body. And there I go, I'm going back to my trinity of health, the soul, the mind, and the body. Because if our mind can be healthy, we can bring our body back into balance.
Imagine that. If we had a healthy population and we could expand our lives and get into where we need to be and have more time and feel better and happier. The vision moving forward, Stephanie, but before we get into that, I want to let people know they can go to your website, agingyounger.net, and you also are co-host of Aging Younger Radio that's hosted on Blog Talk Radio. So if people are interested in more information about what Stephanie has been talking about tonight and you would like some information, maybe perhaps particular to your own situation, you can reach out to her and speak to her more about it, and she'd be a great source for that. The vision moving forward, with everything, new establishments coming, a change in the presidential establishment in Washington, and all of this stuff that's happening now. Let's talk politics for a moment. How do you see, I think it's looking like it's going to be Trump and Hillary. How do you see these two different candidates and the future of 21st century medicine?
Well, this is my opinion, and I'm probably going to tick off a lot of people. But one, I'm a woman, but that doesn't mean I am going to, just because I'm a woman, I'm going to support a woman. I don't support Hillary because I don't trust Hillary. Not you, Hillary, but Hillary, presidential candidate Hillary. I've been following this election. My husband is very, very political, and because of being with David for 20 years, I've kind of taken on the love of politics, but not to the extent that he does. He wrote a book for all who would like to just read about it a little bit. It's called President 2012, Puppet or Patriot or Puppet for Billionaires. And when Obama was running the second time for office. And going back to Hillary and Trump, I think our country would be in worse disaster. I can't get it out of my mind. What difference does it make? What difference does it make after 4 Americans are dead in Libya? That will never leave my mind. And then this email scandal. Trump, I like the fact that he is a businessman. I like the fact that he knows how to build organizations. I like the fact that he is not a politician. Yes, sometimes he can go off the handle. Yes, he says some things out of context because he gets very emotional. But I believe he is capable, as the businessman that he is, of putting a cabinet together that will bring this country back to where it should be. And as a matter of fact, really, you mentioned healthcare and this election. I keep sending him emails through his campaign saying I would be honored to be his Secretary of Health when he wins the election.
Wow, I feel like we've covered so much information already, and I'm going to throw something else in here as well, because it's really relevant, the flu shot agenda. When you can walk into a grocery store and get a flu shot, or walk into a pharmacy store, or get one on the side of the street, you have to wonder what the agenda really is, especially when they admit that the current flu shots aren't always relevant to the strand of virus at risk in the public. How do you take this topic on as a naturopath?
Oh, God, I love it. I love it because we've done so many shows on the flu, and it's all BS, and the flu shots, the vaccines. I'm not a proponent of vaccines, and every time I have to bring my dad into the hospital, well, did he get the pneumonia vaccine? Did he get the flu vaccine? I said, no, and we don't do vaccines. There are adjuvants in the vaccines. An adjuvant is an additive to potentiate the vaccine, and it's usually thimerosal. Thimerosal is, I forget how many more times potent than mercury. It is mercury. Who, in God's name, wants to put mercury in their body? So, let's go back to the box, the impenetrable box. We have Big Pharma, and by the way, it was Sebelius, when she was Secretary of Health, gave immunity. She gave immunity to the pharmaceutical industry against people dying from flu shots. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. In fact, I also know that when we had the swine flu panic a few years back, they could not sell the swine flu vaccine. They could not. It was not a go with the public. So what they did with the extra that did not sell was they mixed it with the flu shot so that they could actually, sell it, move the product, so to speak. And some of the ingredients inside the swine flu shot were appalling. And either a lot of people did a lot of research on that. A lot of people came to the forefront in the public. Alternative media did a great job. And we were able to really get a lot of information out in a timely manner so people could make educated decisions. But it just seems like, why do we need to inject our bodies with mercury every year for a flu virus that mutates and changes so quickly that they can't even guarantee it's going to work? It just seems like there's another agenda. And I'm known to bring people on. What is it? Tell us about that.
There is another agenda. It's all about the profits. But why don't you ask me, Hillary, what is my suggestion for not taking the flu shot?
What is it? Tell us.
It's the same protocol for the intestines.
Huh.
It's the Rejuvenous OSH Silver, aloe vera juice, probiotics, and mega doses of antioxidants. I'm going to tell a little story, if I may. When the H1N1 was running rampant, remember I told you about our first client, Rena? 13 years later, she's still with us, no longer on statins, no longer on diabetic medications. Her daughter-in-law came down with the H1N1. They had come back from the Cayman Islands, she and her husband, from vacation, and she was very ill, and with the H1N1. So she called Rena and said, Ma, what am I going to do? They prescribed me Tamiflu. I'm reading the side effects. I don't want to take this. She said, you call the clinic. You call David and Stephanie. So her husband came down. He brought home to her the silver, the probiotics, the CoQ10, and the selenium, and whatnot. And within 24 hours, she's feeling better, and within 3 days, she's back at work without any prescribed meds. She told her doctor she took the medicine because she worked for his physician, and he would have fired her if she did not take the medicine, but she did not. And we have her testimony on radio. She interviewed with us on one of our shows.
And can people go and listen to that archive, Stephanie?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Can people go and listen to that archive? Where can they find that show? Yes. Tell us where we can find that.
Yes, they can. All of our shows are archived on Blog Talk Radio. And I forget what year this was, 2 years ago, 3 years ago when the H1N1 was, but all of our shows are on Blog Talk. Even David's political shows are on there. He had his radio show for a while on politics. You might want to have him on your show one time, Hillary, if you're really into getting somebody on the political realm.
Yeah, I'm always interested in that, especially with so much attention on what's happening now. So the vision, Stephanie, going forward, how do you see medicine evolving in the next century?
In the 22nd century?
In the 22nd. Let's go there. Let's time travel a little bit to the future and describe what it might look like. What are the possibilities?
Well, that all depends on where the Earth's consciousness is. See? It all boils down to where we will be vibrating. If we don't change our thoughts, and if we don't raise our consciousness, we're going to just continue to spiral down, down, down. What happened to the continents of Atlantis, the continent of Lemuria? They self-destructed, didn't they? Same thing with what happened with the Incas? These were all high-level conscious planets or continents and evolutions, and they all self-destructed because they de-evolved. So this is my thought on my theory, my own personal feeling, is that if we don't raise our vibrations, if we don't change our ways, we're not going to make it to the 22nd century, and we could be a totally different planet.
Well, it's food for thought for sure. Final topic for the show tonight, cannabis coming out as an alternative medicine. More and more research is showing that cannabis as a natural medicine has been helping people recover from some pretty serious diagnoses, including cancer. And, it's a hot topic in politics as well, as different states go ahead and have different politicians musing on the idea of making it legal and how to go about it. How does your structure of alternative health include or disclude this plant?
Well, it's a plant. It comes from the hemp, from hemp seed, for a hemp plant. I eat hemp every day, okay? So it's just a different form of producing, it's a different product from the same plant. If the research, and I believe it's solid, sound research, shows evidence of medical cures, I would love to implement it, but it has to be prescribed through a physician. So there's a lot of controversy as to who can prescribe it, when can it be prescribed, and legalizing it, like in the state of Colorado, it is legal, but it's legal it's being sold as a drug mostly. So for people who just want to have socialized, not socialized, what's the word I want? Just like liquor during the Prohibition. So there are two different arenas here. If it does work medicinally, I would say yes. I don't have a problem with it.
Well, a lot of people, I think it's proving itself to be effective in not only what it does for human beings, but now they're saying studies are coming out suggesting that the plant itself has a detoxification element to the soil. So when you plant the plants in the ground, they actually help to clean the soil and to rebalance the soil. So I always say whatever it's doing in nature, it's going to probably do for us, since we're all connected. I mean, I think part of the problem really is this disconnected, unsustainable consciousness that the majority of human beings have acquired, whether it's from upbringing and just indoctrination or wherever it comes from. They don't have the ability to really see the connectiveness between ourselves and the earth. Do you think that this is perhaps the root of the problem? What do you see as the root of the problem in this unsustainable consciousness that we've really grown into?
You're saying exactly what I was saying. It all goes back to bringing the consciousness up, opening the third eye. But the greed gets in the way. Ego. Politics is all ego. If we didn't have the political arena to fight with and the political agenda, and then the big pharma and the big business people having the profit equation, part of the equation in there, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because everybody would be open to evolving and to opening up the consciousness of themselves and of the planet. So yes, it does go back to the consciousness and sustainability. People, they don't... Hillary, how many politicians out there do you think really give a hoot as to what is happening to our planet?
I think some of them do care. It's just that the system itself is so clogged with red tape and games and just, lobbyists and corporate control that they just are limited in their ways of being able to contribute to the change. I think the entire system has to be redesigned and restructured because it's an outdated system. It's no longer compatible with the growing evolution of consciousness that we're witnessing. People are having spiritual awakenings all over. They're stepping into their divine selves. They're waking up to be more responsible for their bodies and for their surroundings and for their communities and their families and homes and it just keeps on spreading out. And the more that you practice being in a sustainable consciousness, being kinder, being more accountable to your thoughts and your actions, and it spreads. It's like a virus of consciousness. And if we don't talk about it and we don't, get information out there for people to better understand these things, then shame on us for not doing our part. And I think that shows like this and people like you, Stephanie, help to do that by what your passions are and by following that and staying true to them. And that's all we can do is leave a legacy for the generations coming up in this digital age to find the information that we leave behind, and perhaps they're the ones that hold the solutions.
Well, that would be nice. It would be nice if we can do, if in our time we could see the change that we're trying to implement. It would be really nice. I would like to see that before it's my time to transition, because I've seen a lot, Hillary. Again, going back to healthcare, 35, 40 years into the field, and to be where the state that we are in today, and the chaos. It's so chaotic. I never thought I would see this day. I used to be proud to walk into a hospital because I knew we were saving lives. I can't say that's happening today. I can't. And not from what I see. It's too fragmented. The whole system is fragmented, just as the political system is fragmented. And then when the ego gets in there and intertwines within the fragments, it only implodes even more so.
Well said. So, Stephanie Tippie, what do you have coming up next? What's next on the grand scheme of things for you?
Well, I want to put advocacy. I have decided to take on the role to become an advocate for the elderly and the infirmed. They're lost in the system, Hillary. They're lost. There are countless deaths due to medical mishaps. And the elderly and the infirmed, they do not have their own voice. I see it with my father. And then I watch other patients in the hospital or in the doctor's offices who they don't know how to work the system. And just last week or 2 weeks ago, Johns Hopkins came out with a study that the third leading cause of death in the United States is due to medical mishaps. So timely to my little e-booklet, Healthcare in the 21st Century, A True Story of Greed and Love of Family. So timely that I tagged along to it and tweeted it out there, tagging along to Fox News, CNN, for somebody to pick me up, hopefully. Because these people need somebody to have a voice, just like Erin Brockovich is doing for the people with water issues. Somebody has to take the role. Somebody needs to be at the helm to be the voice for these people, because you just don't put them to pasture. And that's what happens, that is what is happening in our society today. When my father, and you'll read about it in the book, when he went to the skilled nursing facility to rehabilitate on his last time out of the hospital, they wouldn't send him back to the acute rehab hospital because he was too high-level functioning. Medicare dictated that. Medicare said no and sent him to a less costly facility where they almost killed him. Because they gave him the wrong medication, number one. And they sent him back to the hospital. Not even in the facility 24 hours, because the hospital discharged him with the wrong medication.
Well, if you want to hear more about this story, we're out of time, and it's probably timely to let people know that if they want to hear more about what happened in that story, you can go to agingyounger.net, and you can find Stephanie Tippie's book and lots more information. Thank you so much for being here, Stephanie, for talking with us about so many different important, timely topics.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
You're listening to Yin Radio TV. I'm your host, Hillary Raimo, and until next time, everyone, namaste.